What if some of the best used car bargains in Britain are hiding in plain sight? While everyone is chasing the latest SUVs, flashy German cars, and expensive new models, there are older cars sitting on used car forecourts that most buyers completely ignore. They aren't glamorous. They don't have the latest technology. And some of them certainly won't impress your neighbors. But here's the interesting part. Some of these cars can be incredibly cheap to buy, surprisingly reliable, and capable of staying on the road for many more years if they're properly maintained. Today we're looking at 10 incredibly cheap cars that almost nobody wants, but that could keep going for years. And number 1 might be one of the biggest bargains of them all. Let's get started. Number 10, Ford Fiesta. The Ford Fiesta might not sound exciting anymore, but don't underestimate it. For years, the Fiesta was one of Britain's most popular small cars. There are huge numbers of them on the used market, which means prices can be surprisingly low. Older petrol versions can be especially interesting for buyers who simply want cheap and straightforward transportation. They're small, easy to drive, relatively inexpensive to maintain, and parts are widely available. And because so many were sold in Britain, finding garages and mechanics familiar with them isn't difficult. The important thing is condition. A cheap Fiesta with a solid service history can make far more sense than buying a much more expensive car with complicated problems waiting around the corner. So while many buyers have moved on to bigger SUVs, the humble Fiesta can still be a very practical bargain. Number 9, Honda Jazz. Next up is a car that doesn't exactly scream excitement. The Honda Jazz. But if reliability and practicality matter more to you than appearance, this little Honda deserves attention. Older Jazz models have developed a reputation for being extremely practical for their size. The interior can feel surprisingly spacious, the seats are versatile, and the car is easy to maneuver around town. And because the Jazz isn't the sort of car that many enthusiasts dream about owning, used prices can be attractive. That's exactly what makes it interesting. You're not paying a premium simply because a badge looks impressive. You're buying a practical little car that can potentially serve you for many years. As always, check the service history, inspect the bodywork, and make sure the specific car you're considering has been properly maintained. Number 8, Toyota Yaris. If there's one word associated with Toyota, it's reliability. And the Yaris is one of the company's most recognizable small cars. Older examples can sometimes be found at surprisingly low prices, especially when compared with newer hatchbacks. They're economical, easy to drive, and generally straightforward transportation. The Yaris also has another advantage. It's not trying to be something it isn't. It's a small city car designed to get you from A to B without unnecessary drama. And for someone shopping on a tight budget, that can be exactly what you want. You don't need a giant touchscreen. You don't need 300 horsepower. You need a car that starts in the morning and gets you where you're going. That's where an older Yaris can make a lot of sense. Number 7, Skoda Octavia. Now let's move to something larger. The Skoda Octavia. For years, Skoda had an image problem in Britain. Some buyers simply didn't consider the brand desirable. But that perception has changed dramatically. And older Octavias can still offer an interesting combination of space, practicality, and value. You get a large boot, plenty of interior space, and a car that can work as a family vehicle, commuter car, or long-distance machine. Some versions are also available with engines that have been used across the wider Volkswagen group. But here's the important warning. Not every used Octavia is a bargain. A neglected example can quickly become expensive. So don't buy one simply because the price looks cheap. Look for maintenance records, inspect the clutch and gearbox where appropriate, check the engine carefully, and make sure the previous owner hasn't ignored important servicing. Buy the right example though, and you could end up with an enormous amount of car for your money. Number 6, Volvo V70. Now we're getting into interesting territory. The Volvo V70 is big, practical, comfortable, and, depending on the version, surprisingly affordable on the used market. It's the kind of car that has slowly disappeared from the attention of mainstream buyers, and that can create opportunities. The V70 was built as a practical family estate, which means there's plenty of space inside. It's also the sort of car that can swallow luggage, bicycles, shopping, and almost anything else you might need to transport. Older Volvos can also attract buyers looking for something different from the usual hatchback. But again, age matters. A cheap luxury car isn't necessarily a cheap car to own. Before buying an older V70, inspect the suspension, electronics, engine, gearbox, and general condition very carefully. The cheapest example isn't always the best deal. The best deal is the example that has been maintained. Number 5, Toyota Corolla. The Toyota Corolla is one of those cars that rarely gets people excited. And that's exactly why it can be interesting. The Corolla has been produced in enormous numbers around the world and has earned a reputation for being dependable transportation. Older models can be remarkably inexpensive because they don't have the image of a premium car. But if your priority is simply getting to work every morning, taking the kids to school, or making long journeys without unnecessary complications, that lack of glamour may actually work in your favor. A well-maintained Corolla can be one of those cars that quietly does its job year after year. No drama, no showing off, just transportation. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. Number 4, Suzuki Swift. The Suzuki Swift is another small car that can be overlooked, but it has several qualities that make it interesting for budget buyers. It's compact, relatively light, easy to park, and generally enjoyable to drive. Older examples can also be considerably cheaper than fashionable alternatives. And because the Swift isn't usually associated with luxury or prestige, you're often paying for the actual car rather than the badge. For a first car, a cheap commuter, or a simple second vehicle, an older Swift can be worth considering. Just remember that cheap doesn't mean you should skip the inspection. Check the brakes, tires, suspension, bodywork, and service history before handing over your money. Number 3, Honda Civic. Now here's a car that deserves serious attention. The Honda Civic. Certain older Civic models have developed an almost legendary reputation among enthusiasts for durability. They're practical, relatively economical, and can be found with engines that are capable of covering serious mileage when properly maintained. But there's another reason the Civic makes this list. Many buyers simply want something newer. That means older Civics can sometimes fall into a strange part of the market where they're too old to be fashionable, but still useful enough to make a lot of sense. And that can be a sweet spot for bargain hunters. A clean, properly maintained Civic may be a much smarter purchase than a newer car that has been neglected. Number 2, Ford Focus. The Ford Focus is another incredibly common sight on British roads. And that abundance can work in your favor. There are so many Focus models on the used market that buyers have plenty of choices. That means you don't necessarily have to settle for the first cheap example you find. You can search for a car with good maintenance records, sensible mileage, decent tires, and a clean MOT history. The Focus also offers something many cheap cars don't. It can actually be enjoyable to drive. So you don't have to choose between an inexpensive car and something that feels good behind the wheel. But once again, condition is everything. A cheap Focus with years of neglected maintenance can become expensive very quickly. The goal isn't to find the cheapest Focus. The goal is to find the best maintained Focus for the money. And that distinction could save you thousands. Number 1, Toyota Avensis. And finally, we have the Toyota Avensis. This is probably one of the least exciting cars on today's list. And that's precisely why it deserves the number 1 spot. The Avensis was designed around practicality, comfort, and dependable everyday driving. It isn't a status symbol. It isn't trying to turn heads. And it certainly isn't the kind of car people brag about owning. But for someone looking for affordable transportation, that's actually a major advantage. Older Avensis models can sometimes be found for surprisingly little money. And if you find one that has been properly maintained, you could potentially have a comfortable family car capable of covering plenty of miles without costing a fortune to buy. Of course, age-related problems still matter. You need to inspect the exact car you're buying. Check its history. Check the MOT record. Look underneath the car. Listen to the engine. Check the gearbox. And if possible, get an independent inspection before buying. Because the cheapest car isn't always the cheapest car to own. So there you have it. 10 incredibly cheap cars that many buyers overlook, but that could still have plenty of life left in them. The Ford Fiesta, Honda Jazz, Toyota Yaris, Skoda Octavia, Volvo V70, Toyota Corolla, Suzuki Swift, Honda Civic, Ford Focus, and the Toyota Avensis. But here's the biggest lesson. Don't shop for the cheapest car. Shop for the best car at the cheapest sensible price. A 2,000-pound car with a complete service history can be a much better purchase than a 1,200-pound car that has been neglected for years. Before buying any used car, check its MOT history, service records, bodywork, tires, brakes, suspension, engine, and gearbox. And remember, reliability isn't guaranteed simply because a car has a good reputation. The individual example matters. A well-maintained older car can sometimes be a fantastic bargain. A badly maintained one can become a financial nightmare. So don't automatically ignore the boring cars. Sometimes the car nobody wants is exactly the car you should be looking at. If you enjoyed this list, subscribe to Hidden Motor Gold for more hidden bargains, reliable used cars, and vehicles that could save you thousands. Because sometimes the best deals are hiding in plain sight.